thought it went live. Okay, now it's going live. No, why it's not? Good morning, everyone. I hope that you are able to see us. If not, please indicate us in the chat. I am not sure as I am not seeing. There is no.
I don't see anything either.
So, now I think now you should be able to see us. I hope, everyone. My apologies for this. I hope that everything is running well, and welcome everyone. I would like to welcome you to another EURES webinar, which is on using skills and occupations to tackle shortages and surpluses in the construction sector. My name is Iva Pasilova. I will be your moderator for today, and together with me I have our guest speaker for today, Mr. Fernando Sicchos. So Fernando, please, if you could say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fernando Sicchos. Indeed, I'm the Secretary General of the European Builders Confederation in my day-to-day activities, and I've been involved in European politics affecting the construction sector over the last 10 years. It's a pleasure to be invited to guide you through what are the trends in construction today.
Okay. I see that we are still experiencing some technical issues, so please give me 1 second to try to sort it out to see what is going on. My apologies, I don't know why it is doing this. And it worked, everything worked perfectly in the test run. I guess that is the Murphy law. But nonetheless, I hope our participants are still with us and will bear the few moments while we fix this. It seems that, yes, now hopefully you are able to see everything. Okay, cool. I hope that now slowly we will get there so that you get to see our guest speaker.
More importantly, the presentation afterwards.
Yes, hopefully everything will be fine. Now, yes, I think we can see Fernando, so please, Fernando, if you could say a few words about yourself.
Yes, again. So I'm Fernando Seixas Jimenez. I've been involved in European politics affecting construction sector over the last 10 years. I'm currently the Secretary General of the European Builders Confederation, organization representing construction crafts and SMEs in Brussels. And it's a pleasure to be given this opportunity to exchange with you.
Okay, thank you, Fernando. I will say a few words before we start with your presentation. So why are we here today? It is because the European Commission designed the year 2023 as the year of skills, and this year should act as an impetus for lifelong learning, but also creating a new momentum to reach the EU 2030 social targets, which are at least 60% of adults in training every year and at least 78% in employment. Furthermore, the Year of Skills is aimed at helping companies, in particular small and medium enterprises, and this is to address skills shortages in the EU. And as well as what I said before, the year will also promote a mindset of reskilling and upskilling, and also helping people to get the right skills for quality jobs. And this is something that the EURES network, and particularly you as EURES advisors, are already doing on a daily basis. So we thought to also include a webinar on the construction sector, because it is one of the sectors that currently is experiencing major labor shortages. And to this end, we thought it would be good for you to listen to some latest information and what is going on in the sector. Furthermore, the construction sector is identified as one of the sectors with many labor shortages. In the upcoming edition of the report on EU labor shortages and surpluses for 2022 that the European Labour Authority will publish in the upcoming weeks. And this is all why we are here today, together with Mr. Seixas, who will be sharing his expertise and insight, first on the main trends in the construction sector, then he will present the main labor shortages and surpluses this sector is facing, which will be followed by focusing on what are the skills and occupation needs now and in the future in this sector. And lastly, we will also take you through the ESCO portal and the Regulated Professions database, two tools that you may find useful for your daily work if you are not using them already. If you have any questions, please place them in the chat, and we will aim to answer your questions after each of the interventions. Of course, if we are not able to provide you an answer on the spot, we will look into it further and follow up with you. I hope you are ready to start. Please do let us know in case really you are experiencing any issues with the live stream, as we know that sometimes there can be some issues. So I hope that everything will work fine and that we are ready to start. With this, I would give the floor back to Fernando, and if you could please start with your presentation.
Okay, I hope everyone can see it. I'm going to put it in full screen mode. There you go. So this first part, as Eva mentioned, is going to guide you through the main trends in the construction sector. Following this structure, I mean, we won't be comprehensive. The construction sector is full of specificities. It's a very peculiar sector, but we will try to give you an image about the economic importance of the sector, and then what is the reality of construction professionals today, and also a broader, let's say, presentation on the main European policies affecting the construction industry that will affect in the coming years the construction sector. With that, a few figures, as I said. Keep in mind that the construction industry is peculiar for one single reason. It is because the product that is delivered is not moving. It's the company that is moving. Usually, companies are working from one side, and then the products are circulating. Here, it's the other way around. That's already something that makes the construction sector peculiar. And in that sense, its economic weight is huge. We all spend time in a house, in a building where we work, in schools, etc. And that activity in construction actually represents around 11% of the European GDP. As you can see in the slide, we are also talking about 13 million people in the European 27 member states that are employed in the construction industry. Today, we even talk about the construction ecosystem, which extends, let's say, the range of economic actors in construction. And when we consider the ecosystem, we're talking about more than 25 million people that are linked to construction. Something very specific to construction again, 99% of the companies are SMEs in construction, and out of those 95 of them are micro companies. So which means that most of the companies active in construction sector do have less than 10 employees, 10 workers. Those SMEs, including those micro companies, represent around 80% of the total employment in the sector. Today, what is affecting construction? It's not only today, because there are also, of course, long-lasting structural challenges. The first one here is referring to the challenge, the pressure from demographics, and I will go into it in the next slide. And then there is also the willingness to lead a digital transition in the sector, as well as a green transition, considering the environmental importance the importance to contribute to the environmental effort, in a sector that is causing a lot of environmental concerns. Then there is also the broader international context with a series of crises, and here will just mention the ones that have been happening over the last 3 years. Regarding demographics, so in the construction sector, there is an aging workforce. This has been going on for decades now, and we know that nearly 1/4 of the current workforce is expected to retire in the next 10 years. And at the same time, the amount of people entering in the sector is not compensating all those that are going to leave. So there is a huge risk of no or little intergenerational handover. I'm not going to go into the details of the graphs, but I think they're very visual. On the left, you can see the proportion of the population aged between 15 and 24 years in 2010 and 2021. The blue dots being the situation in 2010. We had, and the gray bar being the amount of that same category of population in 2021. As you can see, all the blue dots are above the gray bar, so we are seeing a decrease in youth in Europe. On the other graph is about the category of people above 65 years. And same exercise, the blue dot represent 2010 and the gray bar 2021. And as you can see, people are growing older. In demographics, again, low participation of certain groups. The construction sector is affected by a lack of interest of youth, let's put it that way. Women represent around 10% of the sector workforce as of today, so there's a lot of potential, but it also shows how challenging that topic is in our sector. And also, construction is considered as one of the sectors where most of the incoming migrants will be working, but still migration will not be enough to face all the labor shortages that we will discuss further on, as won't be there. Even if we increase the female participation in construction, that won't be enough. There are a lot of things to be discussed about. Then an image issue that I think, everyone is aware in society, this idea that construction is still male-oriented, dusty, dirty, dangerous, is affecting the attractiveness, and so puts a lot of pressure on the amount of people that are active in construction. Digital construction. On the left, you will see many concepts that you might be familiar with or not, and that are not comprehensive again, but are those that are being discussed in construction as the trends in the digitalization of the construction sector. Because even though we know the construction sector is one of the least digitalized sectors, the digital transformation is happening right now for many reasons, because there is potential for cost efficiency, to improve productivity, to alleviate certain tasks, etc. Among all those, I will mention the fact that innovation in construction is going at a very fast-paced rhythm, while often companies need more time to adapt to novelty. Sustainable construction. The environmental impact of the construction sector is now well documented. We know that buildings represent 30% of EU energy consumption. Buildings represent 36%, more than 1/3 of the CO2 emissions in the EU, and 1/3 of the waste in the EU. So there is an overall ambition to increase the sustainability for the built environment, the construction center, and buildings themselves. Then I won't go into details because this is too broad, but just for you to keep in mind that, again, part of the reality of construction professionals is to react to to find ways to be resilient, to react to the international context. Just thinking about 2020, we all experienced that wonderful experience of COVID-19 pandemic and its effects. But since then, there were a series of crises affecting construction sectors. Because with the COVID-19 pandemic, it was followed, by supply chain disruptions, then the war in Ukraine, and more recently, energy crisis. And all that requires adaptability from the construction professionals. About European policies, I won't enter into details again, but you might have all heard the ambition to make the European Union, the European continent even, climate neutral by 2050. And that has been also declined in several ambitious calls for buildings, notably the renovation wave, as we know that today retrofitting the existing building stock has to be a major ambition if we want to really take on the environmental concerns with concrete, let's say, activities and performances. The idea is to renovate 35 million buildings by 2030, and to be honest, we are not on a good track. Repower EURES, so there is another ambitious initiative from the European institutions to face the different crises triggered by the war in Ukraine. And more recently, and maybe more importantly, in the discussion right now, is all the developments in the dossier called Energy Performance of Buildings, the directive, the EPBD, because this the piece of legislation will be the main driver of activity in construction for the next decades, notably imposing, let's say, renovation responsibilities on building owners, putting more pressure on national governments to facilitate renovation services, etc., etc. So this is still ongoing. This is not final, but this will be a piece of legislation to have a look at. And that would be it for the main trends on construction.
Okay, thank you, Fernando. I don't know if any of our participants have any questions. For the moment, I do not see anything in the chat. So maybe, Fernando, if there is anything else that you would like to stress in connection with the main trends?
Something maybe that I would be happy to add is that the construction sector has been resilient for one single reason always, that we need places to live, we need places to work. So the importance of the sector will always remain. I've always been told this kind of joke that even if there is a meteorite hitting the planet, we will need people that know how to build a house. And this is true. And that's why the importance of the sector is crucial for society. So going even beyond all the political considerations, economic consideration, is something that affects every one of us. and that's something that I think should be more reflected in the way we deal with the labor shortages that we will discuss further.
Okay, thank you. I still do not see any questions, but perhaps they will come on the second part of the webinar, which focuses on labor shortages and surpluses in the construction sector. Before I give the floor to Fernando, maybe just to mention that some of the observations that will be mentioned here are taken from the upcoming edition of the EU report on labor shortages and surpluses for 2022 that will be published in the upcoming weeks. And perhaps, Fernando, you could again take the floor and take us through the next part of your presentation.
Thank you, Eva. So the second part will be indeed a few reflections on the document Eva just mentioned, because it is one of the most recent documents that analyzes the skill situations in Europe, not focusing necessarily only on construction, but also pinpointing a few trends for the construction sector. And to start with, I would like that everyone keep in mind that it is very difficult to get comprehensive and quality data on what is the reality of the construction sector today. So I would say kudos to this research, because it really brings a good perspective of what is actually going on with statistical data. Very short remarks on labor in construction that will be my starting point. Then I will indeed try to share with you my main takeaways of the report on the shortages that are affecting construction and the few surpluses. I think that won't be a surprise, that could relieve a bit construction but won't be enough. Let's start with that. I will also make links with certain activities that were also mentioned by Eva, notably that there is momentum to discuss about skills, and a few takeaways for what I would call job guidance in general from this analysis of labor shortages and surpluses. I will start with a reality check, and you will notice it later, is that labor shortages in construction are not only coming from structural challenges, are not only from a structural nature, but also come from the impact of all the mega trends presented just before. So there is double pressure on the sector and on the sector workforce, because even though those factors those factors are impacting construction, the construction workforce as a whole, because we're not only talking about shortages in what we call blue collars, but also in the white collar range. So let's say all type of workers are problematic because being not enough or not enough qualified in the construction sector. As you will see in the document that will be presented in the coming weeks, out of the more than most of the trades that are considered as labor shortages in Europe are related to construction or are directly from the construction sector. Here in the table, I've highlighted all those occupations that are considered either as a widespread shortage, meaning that many countries report having a shortage in that occupation, but also about the severity, how deep this problem is. And as you can see here, you will recognize certain basic occupations that are critical for the construction sector to deliver on several ambitions and to keep up activity. The first one being bricklayers and carpenters and joiners. We are talking here very famous construction activities, and we are indeed, and it's not recent, and this just confirms that the situation for crafts occupations, craft trades, has been becoming increasingly problematic because for several reasons those occupations are not considered attractive enough in the labor market. But not only that, you can see in a few lines below that also people that would be considered as more skilled regarding their training, their education, to deal with sheet metals, to deal with electricity, because now this is also something that is evolving a lot, are also part of the main shortages that are faced in the European labor market. Many are here that, I mean, many are missing, sorry, that are even here, and I will mention them later. If you go to the second table on the right, you will see that in this list are also civil engineers. And this is also a major concern of the sector, that indeed we're suffering pressure both on the higher skilled side and the lower skilled side of the spectrum in the construction sector. A few additional comments. As I was saying, the situation is even more challenging than what the table is telling us, because other construction occupations didn't make the cut to get into the table, but they're just outside that table. We're thinking of roofers, we're thinking construction supervisors, so the situation is even more challenging. Then, as I said, this is not new, let's say recent news, that for many of those occupations, these have been lasting for several years. And one of the examples that I would mention is that for carpenters, concrete placers, finishers, civil engineers, this situation has been going on over at least the last 4 years, and even beyond that for the last decade, especially for carpenters, let's say. Here, a lot of text, I know, and the intention is not to go through the whole of it. It's just that then you can have a quick look at maybe situations in certain countries, because every country is affected in a different way by one of the mega trends. I will start by the last one. Czech Republic, for example, was impacted by the war in Ukraine, because a lot of skilled construction workers left the Czech labor market to get back to Ukraine, and that created disruptions. Then you go to Italy. I'm taking it, from the bottom to the upper part. They're facing issues with at the craft level, because there is also this consideration that in certain countries, construction occupations are really traditional. In French, we call them artisans, which means really people that have a very specific knowledge that is coming from a very long period, sometimes being family businesses. And this notion, this concept, is one that is being very difficult to keep up in the current labor market as well. Then I will jump to Germany, that even though they are considered one of the most solid labor markets in Europe, are also facing several issues, notably the fact that family businesses, and a lot of family businesses are active in construction, are suffering from the overall impact of shortage of workers. Then I will jump to another focus. Here is also coming from the EURES report, is that the education profile in the most widespread shortage occupations that we already mentioned are mostly in construction sector. The education profile is also dominated by building crafts. As you can see in the table on the left, I haven't managed to highlight it better, but I will pinpoint a few of them. This table shows you the level of education according to the ISCSED scale in certain occupations. And as you can see here, many construction occupations are rather ranging from the medium level qualification to the low level qualification. Okay, in construction, most of occupations are often considered associated with low level, low skilled workers. We're talking about bricklayers, masons, plasterers, and so on and so forth. But the reality is that, and this is due to what I was mentioning before, the craft notion in certain countries, the apprenticeship that is required in certain. Actually, the situation is that most of the education profile in most of the building crafts identified in EURES reports as widespread shortages are actually ranging in the medium level qualification, because certain occupations in certain countries require more than basic training. There is the completion of an apprenticeship, there is a certification system that makes that a situation that where actually officially there is a medium level qualification instead of what we could think a low skill profile. Now I'm going to the labor surpluses, taking also the table from the EURES report in order to show you the disparity between the surpluses and the shortages. Because here in the surpluses, you see the list of many occupations, and out of those, only one is directly linked to the construction sector, which is in the table on the right, the building construction laborers. The other ones, I highlighted them because, let's say, there might be potential to use the surpluses in building caretakers, in interior designers and decorators, and elementary workers that could help to face the shortages in construction. But you can see it from the two tables. If you can mentally compare it, I won't jump from the one to the other, that it should struck everyone that the surpluses are way less relevant for construction than are the shortages. And we know that the low number of surplus occupations actually limits the extent to which occupations that have been identified as shortages in many European countries may be matched with occupations that have been identified as surpluses. Basically, labor surpluses as today won't be enough to tackle the labor shortages in construction, at least. Trying to put that same idea into let's say in another circumstance, in order to show again this disparity. On the left, you can see many occupations that were already in the tables before, where here we can, the EURES try to match the surpluses with the shortages. And the first one being building construction laborers. This is the one that presents more potential, as the surpluses could help tackle the shortage in this specific occupation. But as you can see here, it's not represented even half of the needs in the shortage in that specific occupation. So even if we would manage to make use of the surplus at the cross-border level, that won't be enough to give a balance to that occupation across Europe. So the potential is relatively modest. It is true, however, that the geographical proximity could be a factor that could help relieve certain countries, where neighboring countries with surpluses in construction-related occupations could maybe relieve neighboring countries with major shortages in the same or related construction occupations. One of the examples you mentioned is the fact that in Norway and Germany, it seems that there is a shortage of electrical and mechanical fitters, while Denmark and Sweden, neighboring countries, have a surplus. Taking your heads out of the tables and the graphs and the statistical data, I'd like to mention that this document and let's say the takeaways that we can take from the report, the EURES report, are very timely, because as you might know, this year is indeed the start of the European Year of Skills that will run until May 2024, because there is momentum to build solutions in order to have several sectors, including the construction sector. And in that sense, from my experience, there is a lot of activity going on thanks to the European construction value chain representatives putting a few initiatives on the table, but also national sectoral activity without, of course, disregarding the efforts done by member states and public officials in order to keep that debate going. In the end, the education training aspect is a competence of the national level. So that's where most of the changes stemming from this analysis could happen. A few takeaways that, I mean, are my takeaways for job guidance is that this is the summary of what I tried to mention in simple words. Occupations in surpluses in Europe won't be enough to tackle the critical labor shortages in Europe. That's one consideration to keep in mind. The widespread shortages of occupations in construction are predominated by male profiles. So women should be given better opportunities through gender-specific incentives and programs. And this is something that wasn't a priority a few years ago and should increasingly become so. At least I believe so. Vocational skills and vocational training should be better promoted because I haven't mentioned it yet, but at the same time that there are demographic issues, ambition on the environmental side, etc., we also see decreased importance of vocational training across Europe, and in construction that will be a major factor. So there is a significant decline in the numbers of craft workers, and so the issue is of considerable concern. That's how I put it here. Basically, it needs more attention. And then going back to my education line, enhancing the status of manual trades and craft qualifications could be one of the solutions to face the current shortages in construction. Keep in mind that technical training is not considered the same across European countries. Taking the example of Belgium, or from where I come from, where technical education is considered as the last resort when everything else has failed. So that doesn't help the situation.
Okay, thank you, Fernando, for this part. I see that we have a few questions in the chat, so I would read them out and I would give the floor to you. So the first question is that due to rising interest rates, customers are postponing or canceling projects. To what extent will this affect the construction industry?
That's a very good question, because this is exactly the reality of today. This impacts severally. I mean, this has a huge impact on construction because it blocks the human resources. It blocks the financial capacities of construction companies. So it worsens the situation of construction because people are forced sometimes to close business, to lay off people. And you know, as I was saying, in construction, most of companies are very small. So laying off people in a company of 5 people, you're losing 10, 20, 50% of your workforce. So this is a major issue, considering that in addition to that, there is also an issue of late payments in construction. So when you see the international context affecting the capacity of citizens to invest in construction activities, renovation activities, and you add to that there are liquidity issues even in national member states, it creates a framework for construction professionals that is extremely difficult to navigate. So in that sense, yes, the impossibility of European citizens to invest in renovation and construction, or to delay the works, won't help the economic activity of Europe, the environmental responsibility of Europe, and the societal responsibility of each one of us. That's clear.
Okay, thank you. And You also mentioned that perhaps in many countries vocational education and the more technical or blue-collar work is seen as a last resort, especially for young people. What policies or measures do you think are necessary to make the construction sector more attractive for younger generations?
Policies.
Or initiatives?
Yes, I think that first of all, before even getting into policies, I think there is a societal mindset change that is required because you can put a policy to, let's say, give more funding to training that is needed to vocational training, to give more means to trainers and mentors to update themselves, because to embrace more digital tools, to embrace, let's say, more innovative methods for sustainability in construction. But at the same time, if there isn't a societal change in the way we brand manual trades, vocational training, the interest won't be triggered. I will keep it for later in my presentation. I will get back to this. But I think the very first step is actually societal, that we consider better those trades. Then when we go to politics, I do consider that national governments in the European member states should reinforce the vocational training in many ways. Those that I mentioned: more funding, more support for updating the training curricula, creating maybe mentorship programs so that we don't lose the knowledge from the current workforce, and then to invest more indeed in promotional campaigns, but not necessarily in the streets, let's say, but to go and to do more targeted activities in schools. I'm talking primary schools, I'm talking secondary schools, so that at least all young people know that the construction sector is way different from what they have in mind, and offers actually a whole range of occupations that they're not even aware of. If I take again the example of Belgium, which that I'm familiar with, in Belgium, for you to know and be presented the opportunities in manual trades, as I was saying, you need to fail at everything else. And why wouldn't we in Belgium maybe make it compulsory that 1, 2, 3 times over the secondary education we present what is going on in several sectors that are actually lacking people, and better show how we can include the concerns of youth in those sectors.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps our viewers, if you would like, you can also share your experience with how the skills or how the occupations in the construction sector and the vocational education, how it's seen in your own member state. If you would like, for the moment, I do not see any further questions. Nonetheless, I have one more question in connection with labor surpluses and shortages. So when we look at the construction sector, it is quite vast. In your experience, do you foresee that there are specific subsectors within construction where maybe there is a bit of a surplus or shortage that could be addressed through the other part of the construction sector? For example, I don't know, of course we have the construction as in construction buildings, but then we also have construction as for roads, for railway, also under the sea. In this area, do you think that there is a way where the sector could, by rebalancing the workforce, could also address its own needs?
Unfortunately not. I don't think so. Because from my exchanges with representatives of the whole construction value chains. I think, except for architects, most of the other occupations are struggling with getting people. So, as far as I know, there isn't a specific surplus in one of the subsectors of construction that would allow transfers into another one that is, let's say, in a more critical shape. In building construction or residential, non-residential buildings, we are lacking enough people. In infrastructure works, in civil engineering, that are considered higher level profiles, they're also struggling getting enough people. And when you go to industrial construction, it's also a challenge, and that's why there is, let's say, an increasing reflection of how digitalization, robotization could help tackle the lack of people.
Okay, thank you. There are no questions in the chat, so perhaps we could now go into the current and future needs for occupations and skills in the construction sector, so that you could maybe share with us what you think, how could the shortages or surpluses that you have just presented be tackled in the construction sector, and how we could all help this sector to continue to
its
work.
activity. Yes, I will dive into it. And actually, as you will see, I was planning to start with something that I just mentioned before, to present you what actually is construction, because yes, we all think of buildings as a first thought, but there are way more activities indeed related to construction. And then I will try to present you a bit how I see the impact of digitalization in the sector and on jobs in the sector, as well as the greening, sustainability, let's say more sustainability in the sector, also its impact on the sector and on jobs, and a few thoughts on new talent requirements, and a few takeaways for job guidance. This is a lot of text, and I did it on purpose. Why? Because before getting into the whole panorama of what construction is, I thought it is important to try to gather all the competences that are required in construction. Because by doing so, we will see that it's way more complex than what many people might think of the sector. Because yes, it is about physical skills. This is the number one, fine. But then there is a technical building skills consideration, because we need very specialist profile in construction. Putting bricks together is not the same as treating wood. Fixing plaster is not the same thing as putting paint on a wall. Those are very specific considerations. The safety is a major topic in construction that requires a lot of skill. Then communication. I haven't mentioned it yet, but construction is one of the most cascading sectors, in the sense that the value chain is extremely long. So there are a lot of gaps in the way the several actors of the construction value chain interact, and communication skills are extremely necessary. Cognitive skills, of course, we're talking measurements, we're talking weights, so you need a solid knowledge on that side. Then something that is important is the fact that in construction there are many ways for a person to develop all its abilities. That it is the fact that they need to coordinate a team, that they can coach people, that they can become entrepreneurs themselves. And then more recently, indeed, the increasing need of having technology skills and green skills. But let's go back to what the construction sector is. Yes, buildings, construction. This is the first thought, as I said. But even buildings are made of several sub-activities. There is the furnishing, of labor, yes, of equipment, of material, but there is the design of buildings, the construction itself, the operational phase, the renovation, alteration according to the needs, the repair, the maintenance, and even the demolition. So we're talking residential and non-residential buildings. So we're talking single family houses, your own house, your own flat, your condominium that is with multiple owners, and we're talking public housing, we're talking even skyscrapers. At the same time, we're talking hospitals, schools, and many other type of buildings. But keep in mind that 70%, 75% of the buildings in the EU are residential. And that's why the renovation of these buildings is the main market of the main actor in the construction sector, construction SMEs and crafts, especially the energy efficient renovation of residential buildings, which represent around 70% of the turnover of small construction companies. A second subsector in construction, infrastructure, civil engineering. Here we're talking about all these construction outputs that allow the economic activity and the everyday activity of our society. We're talking bridges, we're talking tunnels, we're talking electrical grids, sewers, railways, roads, etc. And those also are, let's say, cut in several layers, in the sense that there is also a very specific design component to it. There is the operational phase, there is the maintenance phase that is very important, and all those require very different skill sets. In this subsector of construction, there is a bigger role for civil engineers, that does, for architects, which I was saying maybe less for architects, but that are also suffering from shortages. I just took here, you will see in the yellow box, one consideration is that according to an analysis conducted by Eastern European researchers, but upon request of the European Commission, in 2015, 8 construction worker skills underlined as the priority were related to infrastructure and civil engineering. So road workers, civil engineering constructors, electrical fitters, site managers. So to respond again to the question from Eva, this subsector cannot help the first subsector. There are also issues here. The last one, industrial construction, we're talking, let's say, the industrial component of construction, the mining, the refineries, power generation. We're talking these huge construction projects that are intended for industrial use. As I was saying, certain actors in construction consider that industrialization of many construction activities, tasks, processes could be one of the scenarios to envisage in order to balance the lack of workforce, because as of now we are facing several pressures, but this is not new. This has been going for ages, and still we don't find recipes that would allow us to keep a balanced workforce in the sector. So industrialization and even beyond robotization, etc., could be one of the ways. I'll go on the impact of digitalization in the sector and the jobs in the sector. I'm not going to read it all. I'll leave it to you for your pleasure afterwards, but I will mention the main idea here. Is one of the impacts is that the evolution, technology is evolving extremely fast. And in construction, research and innovation is going at a very high pace. While construction actors, economic actors, usually take time to adapt to novelty. Digitalization, what is it? It's extremely broad. It can go from one company investing in a computer, in smartphones, in using a platform, yes, for conference calls, to 3D modeling software, to robots, to artificial intelligence devices. So digitalization in construction is very broad and affects construction economic operators in a very different way. However, all construction economic operators see a potential for alleviating certain tasks that are dangerous, that are putting a lot of pressure on health, that are maybe not the safest, but also, as already said, that could help in the planning, in reducing costs, in anticipating workloads. So we see an increasing interest for science skills, technology skills, engineering skills, math skills in construction profiles, and also at the craft level. And this is a very challenging situation. At the same time, let's not be naive. The next generation of construction workers will be made of digital native people. So those people will be either incentivized by the inclusion of digitalization in the sector, or be reluctant to enter in construction because there is not enough digital in the construction sector, which then leads to investments requirements for construction economic operators. It could be one of the ways to get more people in construction to invest in advanced equipment. So yeah, I mean, you see, there are many considerations about the digitalization because it is ongoing, and we feel several factors from the digital construction affecting now the day-to-day activities. A few examples of new jobs in construction, digital jobs, and this is far from exhaustive. BIM, building information modeling. So let's put it, modeling the buildings that exist today are increasingly becoming important in construction. And for that, you need to be able to deal with softwares. You need to be able to deal with data collection, data analysis. And it's creating a new wave of BIM-related professions that could be less or more ambitious. Being a BIM technician, so know how to input in a BIM model, a BIM manager, some for companies that are using BIM in several projects to make something coherent. BIM coordinator goes in the same vein. But then on the designer side, considering that there are increasing tools helping, let's say, the design phase of construction projects, you need those people to also evolve with that innovation. And here you see a few examples of what it implies. Then this is rather new to my knowledge. It's all this need for consultancy and guidance from experts, and let's say holistic experts, people that know about connectivity, not necessarily connectivity in construction, but connectivity in general, that would input and help economic operators in construction to adapt to this Internet of Things evolution, for example. And same with data analysis. There is increasingly data collection and increasing data collection in construction that requires people that know how to deal with the data and that know to make something out of it in order to influence the way construction is being done. I mentioned it, there are a lot of digital tools on the market. On the market doesn't mean that they are uptaken by economic operators. And in that sense, but we still see several professions evolving in a way to embrace more the digitalization and the use of certain tools that really bring an added value to construction sites. It could go from a app, so a basic app taking pictures of a construction project where you can put a few notes. Basically what we do with WhatsApp today, you take a picture, you put a few notes, but more in a professional environment. And you need people that are more familiar with this kind of tools. And then you can go to another extent to drones use, yes indeed, robots use, etc. So there are many evolutions that are affecting construction sites. One thing that I would mention is that the BIM, so using technology in public procurement related to construction, is increasingly becoming mandatory. It's a trend now in order to foment the digitalization of the sector, because we know that public contracts are one way to bring novelty in the way construction operations are made, are yes, I mean, are conducted, and so that will force somehow a better uptake of digital tools in construction. Going now to the sustainability greening part. The construction sector is very well aware of its, let's say, impact on the environmental side. And there is indeed a lot of challenges, but all those challenges are actually opportunities, because it means that plenty can be done in order to improve the environmental footprint of the sector. But as I was saying before, also something that is being noticed increasingly is that this willingness to go for a more sustainable construction sector also puts a lot of pressure, because it means that more people or more specific skills and profiles are needed in construction, while, as was stated before in the previous presentation, there is already a lack of people in construction at all levels. So if we need more people, but also more specific people with very specific competences, it is going to be a huge challenge. I take here the example of electrical work. If we, electricians, because this is one of the occupations that is evolving very fast now, as you might have noticed, there is this willingness to switch from fossil fuels devices to more electric ones in order to limit the impact, the environmental impact of heating in Europe. And there are a lot of technologies out there that will require electricians to get familiar with new devices, with new ways of connecting the electricity grid in the house to the systems. But at the same time, we're missing so many electricians that we're asking more people, but also more skilled people, and sometimes very specialist profiles in the sector. And actually, the impact of this sustainability willingness is kind of worsening the situation of skills in construction, even though it's the only way to go. Example of new green jobs in construction. It won't be a surprise, because I think at least over the recent months, over let's say the last year, we have seen it more in the everyday newspapers, that we are missing several critical and basic for construction, basic in the right, I mean, in a nice way, basic, because without them there is no construction sector. We're talking plumbers, electricians, etc. But those occupations are evolving, need to evolve, as I was saying, and now we see people that are getting specialized in the installation of renewable heating system, in radiant floor, so heating through the floor, in solar power. Photovoltaics are one of the huge conversations today, but we need people, electricians, that are familiar with photovoltaics installation. Geothermal heating is also a thing, basically, that needs more specialists in the matter. And you see a few others. Heat pumps are also being discussed a lot, notably in the context of European legislation affecting the energy performance of buildings, but also eco-design and others. We also see a tendency towards more bio-based materials, and that's why I'm mentioning manufacturers, bio-based manufacturers, because there is this willingness to become more circular. So reusing, let's say, certain resources, repairing them, or use resources that weren't considered so far and that have a lesser environmental impact. For that, you need then to include circularity concepts in the construction sector that require, again, a new set of skills. Again, this then as a third layer, I would say this idea of very specific and holistic profiles that would also help the construction sector, with people that are experts on net zero energy, passive houses, eco-construction, circularity in general, but then that we need to increasingly get with a construction focus and not only the holistic one. Designers will also be affected, so because we're now thinking about circular design of houses, circular design of buildings, sustainable designing, and all that creates new jobs, or at least, as I'm putting it in the last yellow box, sometimes it's not about creating a new profession, but it's more about the current occupations to evolve and take a new skill set. This is a very nice collection of pictures, because the point here is that discussing the impact of sustainability construction, of digitalization construction, discussing the many challenges, demographics, etc., that are in construction. At the same time, we know that the new talent will be a mix of everything. Why? As you can see on the left, I put a picture of a lady that is an expert on the renovation of historic buildings. We need that. We need people that is specialized in crafts and adapting to, let's say, the energy renovation of historic buildings. We go below a lady that is a Swiss entrepreneur specialized in the installation of photovoltaics. We need more women, and we need women that might be triggered, whose interest might be triggered by the idea of making more sustainable the buildings where we live in. So, you know, this combination is the type of new talent the construction sector needs. Pictures about young people that are interested in construction and that need to master, let's say, the classical trades before maybe developing something innovative, because the society is changing. As you can see below, safety, we need people that are interested in safety matters in construction, that are women, young, or that are interested in bridging the gap with older generation. And indeed, as you can see on the right, we will need people that do this, how can I put it, that also intervene in the more bigger projects, industrial projects, in the industrial spectrum of construction activities, because those are complementary, from crafts to buildings to industrial to infrastructure. We will need new talent in all those sections. I think this is my last slide, if I'm not mistaken, and no, one before last. And this is funny, and I wanted to share it with you because I think, being a parent myself, this struck a chord with me, is that people are evolving. And here, as you can see, we're in the image. People consider builders or people that so interested in building, or people that were even before the baby boomers. So, and you see the evolution from then to what are the interests of people today. And we are far from having the same type of interest as in the builders generation, let's say. And we need to make, to create bridges with the people that are actually Generation Y, Generation Z, and even Generation Alpha, because one of the challenges will be to show those people that their interests are also reflected in construction. What they see as a career goal is also reflected in construction. And actually, construction could provide the kind of type of workplaces that they actually like. And that would be one of the ways to maybe get these new younger generations in construction. Let's say, you see in Generation Alpha, music devices, they like smart speakers. Yes, what they like is everything to be connected. Construction is on a way, at least on the path to better connection between devices on a construction site, but also in the houses. So this is the ways we can trigger their curiosity and see how we can face that mismatch. My very final slide, what I consider takeaways for job guidance is that construction is, yes, facing shortages at all education levels, but actually it means that it's open to low, medium, and highly skilled profiles. The construction sector is evolving. There are actually many opportunities to keep training ourselves, to keep learning, to develop a lot of skills and not redundant skills. Construction offers hands-on experience and real responsibilities sooner than in other sectors. You can become your own boss quicker in construction because we need more construction companies, we need more construction specialists, we need more construction workers. So for people that would like to have their own project, construction could be one way to go. Construction has a solid social dimension, with most enterprises being small, local, family businesses. So this, I know from my experience, this really interests people because there is this increasing willingness to reduce the range of activity, and also, let's say, to keep activities to a community level. Construction translates climate and environmental concerns into direct, concrete, pragmatic contributions. Education and training systems should be more attuned with the changing nature of skill demand in construction. So more needs to be done to close the mismatch between what is offered in education and what is really needed. And there is a lot of room for improvement for information provision, awareness raising, better career guidance for workers, youth, families, parents. Please, let's tell parents that there is a bright future for younger generations also in construction, so that we improve the image and attractiveness of this sector.
Okay, thank you, Fernando, for these presentations. I do not see any questions in the chat so far, so I would like to ask our viewers to feel free to put any questions they may have in the chat. But I also have maybe one or two questions for you, and that is because this webinar is for the EURES network, so for our EURES advisors who work on a daily basis with employers and with job seekers. What would you advise them for them to give advice to either to their employers or to the job seekers in connection with the construction? For example, if they have a company that is in the construction sector and they need employees, how would you advise this company to get these employees? And vice versa, if you have a young job seeker who is perhaps undecided where they could go, how would you get them interested in the construction sector?
I think the first step is to change the narrative. To change the narrative in the sense that they should be able to advise, let's say, construction employers to see what in their activities contributes to societal challenges. And by that I mean that instead of saying we need people to do this and that, you can say, please come and contribute to the greening of the construction sector, to the greening of the houses you live, etc. So, you know, this switch is very important because we notice it. Many construction companies that are more keen on changing this narrative are getting better profiles and better branding in the labor market. I'm thinking of a company in France that realized after 40 years of, let's say, of activity, that over those 40 years they were using bio-based paint. And they realized it, I think, a few years ago, and they changed the narrative how they present the company in saying, we are sustainable because actually for 40 years we have been using bio-based paint in our activities. And that, you know, that core of sustainability will, I think, be more attractive than saying, do you want to become a painter? We need more painters. And I would say this is a very important suggestion for me, is that we definitely need to change the narrative, because all of the construction employers, that they are big, small, let's say, generalist or very specific, should be able to find in their activities something that resonates with the broader societal challenges, and that should help them, brand them, in the labor market. And for job seekers, what would be the advice is, I mean, if you need to guide job seekers, it would be to maybe make use of the presentation to say, to start asking, what do you think construction is? And then hit those people with what actually construction is or is going to become, because they're not aware of that. Most of people are not aware of that. So I would say a change of narrative first. Then something that I think is important is to insist on is on the hands-on experience. In construction, you cannot learn only by reading, studying. You need to learn by doing. And for many people today that are looking for a meaning to the activities they're conducting, to their careers, this could be a way to, again, trigger their curiosity, because construction indeed is one of the sectors that allows you to test your knowledge faster than in other sectors.
Okay, thank you. And maybe one more question, and that is because so in the EURES network, it focuses on supporting intra-EU labor mobility, and you have mentioned that many companies in the construction sector are small SMEs, even micro companies. How do you think that these micro companies could make use of EURES, meaning could make use of labor workforce from other EU member countries? Because if I'm not mistaken, many EURES advisors who are in touch with these companies, they always see the hurdle of the companies being afraid of hiring people from other countries. Is there a way to get around this, or?
I mean, to be honest, I think that there is potential for, let's say, the regions that are actually at the border, because there is a natural exchange also at the cultural level. By that I mean that most of construction SMEs, most of them are very local companies active in a short perimeter, sometimes talking one language, and trying to find ways to communicate with people coming from another background. That is very tough. That's already a challenge. So I would say in general, in all countries, I see it as a very difficult task. But maybe to start focusing on those border regions where there is more possibilities to show and put in place program of exchange. I'm thinking, and I think it's already the case, if I'm not mistaken, Alsace in France with the neighboring region in Germany. There are still already exchanges because there are linguistic considerations. The culture is a bit closer, but otherwise I see it as a huge challenge, because people are not that keen on hiring someone from, because it requires a lot of training, a lot of time that is going to be spent in order just to find a way to communicate with a person. So if I have to be honest, I would say that the focus should be really on the border regions. Then from then build on success stories to say, okay, this has worked here, let's go to the region that is just next to that one, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you. I would also like to ask some of our viewers if if you have observation from because I'm sure we have many viewers from the cross-border areas, that you can also share your experiences in the chat, or then pose even more questions in the chat so that we can answer any of your inquiries. And I see that we are a bit ahead of schedule today, which is always good, because usually we manage to run a bit behind. So with this, I would move into the last main block of our presentations today, and that is looking at the ESCO portal and also the Regulated Professions database. These are two tools that I think you, if you are not already using them, you may find useful for your daily work. And maybe just to say a few words of what exactly is ESCO, in case you are not familiar. So the abbreviation stands for, and I see that perhaps we have an issue with, again, with broadcasting and showing you the website. So my apologies. I will try to fix it. Let me see, and it seems that for some reason just give me a second, and because I need to fix it a little bit, and so that you are able to see properly. Okay, I see that now. Hopefully you are able to also come up. If not, then I will. It seems that it's not yet loading properly. My apologies. Okay, yes. Now, hopefully, you are able to see. So this is the website of the ESCO portal, and it stands for and it is not working as I intended to, so my apologies. I need to see for 1 second, if you would bear with me. Let's see if I do it differently. It seems that for some reason I am not able to showcase the portal at the moment. So my apologies for that, as it seems to not work. But perhaps this way? No. My apologies. I will try to fix it as soon as possible. No. Let's do it this way. If this way works. And let me see. My apologies. It seems that we have run into some technical difficulties, and that I am not able to showcase to you today the ESCO portal and the Regulated Professions database. So my apologies for that. What I can do is I will place the link to the tool into the chat so that you can explore them by yourselves. as these two tools, if you are not using them already, are quite useful and can help you with with your daily work. My apologies, because for example, the objective of the European multilingual classification of skills and competencies and occupations. It serves as a glossary of occupations and skills that are relevant for the EU labor market, and also education and training. And my apologies, it seems that currently there are some technical issues. So I'm trying to see if you are able to see me, but for some reason it's not working.
Do you want to share from my computer?
Yes, but I don't think it will make any difference, unfortunately. So yeah, so my apologies for this inconvenience. What I can suggest is that I would make a short recording of the last part of the webinar that we have prepared for today, and there I would show you how you could use the ESCO portal and also the regulated professions database in helping you identify skills as well as occupations in the construction sector, and also through the regulated professions database, where you can find more information with regards to if the occupation that you are trying to fill, if it's on the list of regulated professions in your country, and what type of agreements your country has with the other EU member states or the EEA countries with regard to these professions. Nonetheless, I would like to thank you for bearing with us today, even though there were some technical issues, so my apologies for this. And I would like to ask you if you could I'm now my apologies. I will go back, will stop trying to fix it, and I will just go back to the closing that we have prepared for you. So thank you all for being with us today and for bearing with us through the last moments where we have experienced technical issues. Also, thank you for the questions that you have had. I hope that you found the webinar useful and that you have learned something new, and that perhaps it has provided you with some new insights that you will be able to implement in your daily work. This is part of the EURES Webinar series. So, of course, in order to for us to continue improving our work, I would kindly ask you to fill in a satisfaction survey. I am placing the link to it in the chat so that you can provide feedback. If you have any follow-up questions, I am also placing in the chat an email address to which you can send your inquiries to. And as mentioned in the chat previously, the slides that Fernando has shared with you here today, we will disseminate them to the EURES training coordinators, so you will be able to then receive them as well. And I'm sure Fernando will also provide you with his contact information, so in case you have any questions, you will be able to follow up directly with him. And also, I have two information points that I would like to further share with you before we close for today. And as some of you may already be aware, at the end of January, the European Labour Authority has launched a second edition of the call on good practices. And I am sharing with you the link to this practice in the chat. And let me just say a few words of what exactly this call for good practices is. It is a tool through which the European Labour Authority aims to collect examples of good practices. This year, the priority is collecting good examples in the construction sector, as well as examples in preventing social security fraud. And within these examples, particularly information on provision or on information provision to workers and employers in construction, on rights and obligations, as well as initiatives to tackle labor shortages in the sector are very much welcome, as these are very much areas where you, as EURES advisors, are particularly active. You are very much welcome to submit an application. The deadline for this application is the 30th of June. And you will find more details about the call on the website of the European Labour Authority. Again, I have placed a link to that call into the chat, so that you are able to look it up. And lastly, before we close the seminar, I would also like to bring your attention to the upcoming launch of the EU report on labor shortages and surpluses for 2022. So today, Fernando has already shared some findings from this report that were connected to the construction sector. Nonetheless, the report focuses on all sectors across the EU, and also I think it goes a bit wider than the EU. And this report will be presented in an event that is organized by the European Labour Authority and Eurofound. The event is called "Where are the shortages? Where are the workers? The drivers behind labor shortages in Europe and how to tackle them." This event is taking place on the 29th of March, so next week. And it will also be streamed online. So therefore, if you would like to have or follow this event as well, you are more than welcome to. I am now placing a link into the chat for the event, so that you are able to follow the event online. Also, in the last Inside EURES newsletter, there was a mention of this event. And with this, I would very much like to thank you for today. I hope that you found the presentation useful. And perhaps, I don't know, Fernando, if you would like to have a few more parting words.
Sorry, yes. Just thank you for the questions, and indeed just to confirm that in case of any doubt or if you want further information, I will be available to discuss those matters even afterwards this event. So thanks again for the invitation, and I hope your interest on construction grew a bit today.
Okay, so again, thank you for your attention, and we will follow up with regard to the presentation of how or the showcase of ESCO's occupations and skills and the regulated professions database. With this, thank you very much for your attention, and we hope that we will see you in the next webinar. I'm now only showing the satisfaction survey slide.